Let's head into the newscast with our top focus on Israeli election as the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's prospects for another term look uncertain after partial results projected no clear path to victory.
As currently declared, Israel's Prime Minister is Benjamin Netanyahu. Netanyahu, a former Israeli Prime Minister, reappears in office, intimidating and striking. Additionally, it is breaking news from the Middle East that Benjamin Netanyahu was re-elected as Israel's Prime Minister. As it is for an event like this, many have asked, what does this mean and why would this happen? Those are valid concerns, but there hasn't yet been a solution that resembles the Israel of old. Rabbis of the Jewish faith appear to have the solutions, yet they are conflicted. A Jewish religious leader is referred to as a rabbi. Rabbi is a translation of the Hebrew word rab, which means teacher or master. Teaching and interpreting Jewish law and tradition is the responsibility of rabbis. Additionally, they oversee Jewish religious services and provide their congregation members with direction. Rabbis come in a wide variety of forms and hold varying degrees of power and duty. While some rabbis just serve as instructors, others are also elected officials, judges, or community leaders. Although a rabbi's position has changed throughout time, the fundamental duty of offering religious leadership and advice has remained constant. Moses' followers, who were in charge of passing on his lessons to the next generation, were the first rabbis. There was no systematic system of rabbinic ordination in the early days of Judaism. But as the Jewish population grew and spread around the globe, it became clear that there was a need for a more organized system of religious governance. In the 2nd century CE, the first official rabbinic ordinations took place. The Sanhedrin, a body of rabbis, authorized these ordinations. In ancient times, the Sanhedrin served as the top religious and judicial council for Jews. The function of the rabbi continued to change during the ensuing centuries. Rabbis participated more and more in Jewish society's political and social life. They were essential to the formation of Jewish law and custom. They also served as judges and community leaders. In the modern era, the role of the rabbi has changed once again. Rabbis are now responsible for leading Jewish religious services, teaching Jewish law and tradition, and guiding their congregants. They also play an important role in interfaith dialogue and outreach. There are many different types of rabbis in the modern world. Some rabbis are affiliated with specific denominations of Judaism, while others are independent. Some rabbis are full-time professionals, while others serve as rabbis on a part-time basis. Regardless of their background or affiliation, all rabbis share a common goal: to serve the Jewish people and help them live according to the teachings of Judaism. Some of the most famous rabbis in history are Hillel the Elder, Shammai, Akiva, Judah HaNasi, Maimonides, Shlomo Carlebach, Yitzhak Hutner, Abraham Joshua Heschel, and others. These rabbis have all made significant contributions to the development of Judaism. They have taught and interpreted Jewish law and tradition, led Jewish religious services, and guided their congregants. They have also played an important role in the social and political lives of the Jewish people. Rabbi is a respected and important title in the Jewish community. Rabbis are seen as religious leaders and teachers who are dedicated to helping their congregants live according to the teachings of Judaism. They play an important role in the preservation and transmission of Jewish law and tradition. Some contend that Benjamin Netanyahu is the fulfillment of the two-stage approaching Messiah, the Messiah ben Yosef and the Messiah ben David. While some think that his reappearance heralds the arrival of the Messiah, if you find it strange, you'll have to know that certain Jewish rabbis have said that he previously met with the Messiah, and that allegation dates back to September 29, 2002. This is significant because if it occurs, the Antichrist coming prophecy will be realized. We will go through everything related to this development in Israel and what it implies for the rest of the world in detail in this video, since we can tell from the interaction that this specific Messiah is not the Son of God, Jesus, whom the Bible instructs us to anticipate. Rabbi Menachem Chenderson and Rabbi Yittif both foretold decades ago that Benjamin Netanyahu would be re-elected and that he would be the last prime minister of Israel until the advent of the Messiah, in a piece written before Netanyahu's re-election. It's not new, despite how it might seem. It is now the new hope for ultra-Orthodox Jews. Since its proclamation, many still hold its belief tight in their hearts. Israel's last round of elections on November 1st, 2022 still looked positive for Netanyahu, showing Israelites even won it. Under 30 Israelis and Palestinians have spent the majority of their lives under Benjamin Netanyahu's leadership as Israel's prime minister. King Bibi, as he is often referred to by admirers and detractors alike, was first elected prime minister in 1996 at the age of 46. Since then, he has never been far from a position of authority, and he is set to leave that position at the age of 71. He broke multiple records throughout his 15 years in office, 12 of which were consecutive. Netanyahu was younger than Israel's first prime minister, David Ben-Gurion, became the leader of the country for the longest period. Netanyahu's internal followers view him as a tough-minded patriot, even though the rest of the world views him as an unyielding hardliner. Many people anticipate that he'll attempt to retake power at some point, but 3 ongoing criminal corruption trials may foil his efforts. In the 1980s, Netanyahu gained notoriety as a name on U.S. television, arguing Israel's case as a diplomat. He is a fluent English speaker with a strong American accent. The former commando made his political debut in the 1990s as a crucial player in the hardline response to the stalled peace negotiations between Israel and the Palestinians. After Yitzhak Rabin was assassinated in 1995, an early election was held the following year, which brought Benjamin Netanyahu and his opposing worldview to power. His long-lasting influence has been to take the nation out of a situation where the end of military rule over millions of Palestinians felt like a possibility, or as some Netanyahu adversaries said, a necessity if Israel was to prosper. Today's reality is one of Israel control over the entrenched occupation that appears to go on forever, which Netanyahu and other mainstream politicians aim to consolidate by annexation. Netanyahu made it plain that his overarching goal was for Israel to maintain a position of dominance, not compromise, in the Middle East, in his first speech to the U.S. Congress on July 10, 1996. In our Hebrew scriptures, which spread from Jerusalem to all of mankind, there is a verse. God will give strength to his people. God will bless his people with peace, he said. This is the original, inspired source for the truth that peace derives from strength. The Jewish state would stay isolated in the area unless it's relaxed its control over the Palestinians, according to Netanyahu, who has maintained his worldview for close to 3 decades. Following the first of several similar agreements, which Netanyahu signed in August last year, the United Arab Emirates and Israel established full diplomatic relations. He stated that strength attracts and weakness repels, as was once again demonstrated. In the Middle East, the strong survive, and with strength one makes peace. The Israeli peace camp of the 1990s, which he so despised, has been pushed to the margins of internal politics, demonstrating the strength of that message. Netanyahu's successor, Naftali Bennett, is a former chief of staff to his predecessor, and the two are ideologically aligned. Still, just weeks before Netanyahu's departure, his logic was questioned as protest, anger, and violence erupted across Israel and the occupied territories, which his critics said proved the Palestinian crisis could not be ignored or managed away, even for self-interested reasons. On the domestic stage, Netanyahu has long convinced the Israeli electorate that they have never been richer or safer, and his supporters laud him as Mr. Security. He has intermittently lost power since he was first elected, including to former Labor leader Ehud Barak, and then a member of his own Likud party, Ariel Sharon, but always managed to claw it back. Orit Galil-Zucker, the former head of Netanyahu's political communications team, said it would be premature to suggest his career was now finished. Netanyahu has not yet said the last word, she said. One should always keep this in mind when talking about his legacy. Her former boss, she said, had been in power for so many years thanks to his charismatic personality, his propaganda abilities, his understanding of political marketing, and the exercise of a government-backed, fear-based strategy. Seemingly an affable diplomat when speaking English, Netanyahu has played the dog-whistle alarmist in Hebrew to rally his nationalist base, infamously exploiting anti-Arab fears to win the 2015 ballot. In 2019, he was again criticized as being overtly racist, stating Israel was not a state of all its citizens, about the country's minority population of Palestinian citizens, almost a fifth of Israelis. And in the past few years, in a bid to save his political career, he has made election pacts with far-right Jewish extremists. His rivals and former allies accuse him of divisiveness and chipping away at Israeli institutions, including the judiciary, to maintain his position. Galili Zucker said, Netanyahu seems to have memorized Machiavelli's The Prince well. Achieving the goal is sacred even if the path is immoral. Public love is less important than fear, and ongoing propaganda ensures personal survival. With Hamas terrorists in Gaza, Netanyahu has fought 3 battles, the most recent of which was resolved last month. Netanyahu managed the 2014 conflict in which Israeli attacks claimed the lives of more than 2,200 Palestinians, the majority of whom were civilians, according to the UN, while being perceived in his own country as a combative recluse. The year was the bloodiest for Palestinians since the start of the occupation in 1967. On the Israeli side, 73 people died, mainly military men. Additionally, by supporting Saudi Arabia and Iran in a developing Middle East Cold War, he has drawn Israel into the conflict. As a result, Israel now often bombs Iranian soldiers stationed in adjacent Syria. The victory of Donald Trump, who gave Netanyahu a number of his core demands that were perceived as punishing the Palestinians, was maybe the greatest gift of his career. Netanyahu, meanwhile, was increasingly pursued by a corruption inquiry during those years. He also set a new milestone in 2019 when, while still in office, he became the first Israeli leader in active service to be charged with a crime. He is accused of exchanging favors with media and telecom moguls and accepting presents from millionaires. Netanyahu has resisted leaving office, in contrast to one of his predecessors, Ehud Olmert, who did so once it looked like he would be charged. Indicted in 3 separate cases, including on charges of bribery and fraud, Netanyahu faces more than a decade in prison if convicted, but has vowed to fight the accusations, which he denies. 2 years ago, Netanyahu appeared to have successfully secured another term in office until disagreements erupted between Jewish ultra-Orthodox parties and the former defense minister and staunch secularist Avigdor Lieberman. Ultimately, the prime minister was unable to bring the two sides together and his right-wing coalition collapsed. A video clip depicts a well-known Jewish rabbi urging Netanyahu to take more steps to secure the speedy ascension of the upcoming Messiah. It appears as though certain citizens of the country want it, as the Bible claims. Benjamin Netanyahu, who will become prime minister, inked a coalition agreement with the extreme right wing of religious Zionism after his party garnered the most votes in the most recent elections. What might this imply? Furthermore, Netanyahu and the arrival of the Jewish Messiah are connected. To be clear, Jesus Christ was not involved in this at all. At the end of the video, we'll demonstrate how Jesus met all the requirements of the Old Testament laws and prophets in such a way that no one should have doubted him or turned elsewhere for a new Messiah. According to a November 19, 2018 story, Netanyahu is in control of the Messiah. Let's talk about a section to pique your interest. It pains me as a friend, as a brother, as a close friend to see how many people constantly spill Netanyahu's blood, but I have a surprise for them. He is going to stand tall on God's side. He has a promise from the rabbi, and he is going to make it through this. We have seen it happen up until now, and that is how it is going to be as well. He will make it through this, and we will continue, and I hope we will be able to hand his keys over to Messiah, the Messiah, and will have complete and true redemption. If you're still doubting, there's another article from 2018 for your corroborating this, and it says, Netanyahu will hand the scepter to Messiah, the son of David. The Jewish Messiah's often spoken words are intended to foster a favorable opinion in the listener. However, we'll assume that's not the case. It more or less refers to the Antichrist. Even the Bible acknowledges that the Antichrist won't necessarily be a flawless imitator of the real Christ who subsequently leads the world astray, but rather a figure who represents the antithesis of him. Furthermore, Netanyahu appears to be the fulfillment of the prophecy that he would be brought into the seat of authority by someone who controls the keys. We have described the 2 phases of the Jewish messiahship in the same video. The first phase is referred to as Messiah ben Yosef, and it is a commonplace practical procedure procedure that involves bringing back exiles and establishing Israel's territory. The restoration of the Davidic monarchy and the construction of the Third Temple are two aspects of the second stage that are more closely related to the supernatural and are frequently addressed in the Bible. Additionally, it is said in the Shema that Jonathan will eventually become the Moshiach ben Yosef Messiah reincarnation from the Joseph family, although he will ultimately serve as Messiah ben David's secondary successor. David's incarnation will carry out his pledge to act as David's second in command by coming from the house of David. Meanwhile, within Messiah ben Yosef, there will be two divisions, and Rabbi Shirdi has attested to it by saying this is a leader in the material world, and this, as we have seen, is being fulfilled by Netanyahu. There is also a spiritual ben Yosef, whose function is to prepare the world to receive the light of Messiah ben David. Have you made the connection yet? As you can see from their past, they have created several messiahs who do not adhere to either scriptural or even Torah teachings. The Bible's prophecies about everything, however, are what stand out the most. This corresponds with the arrival of Jesus in the world and his declaration in Matthew chapter 10, verses 5 and 6, when he declared he had been sent to the lost sheep of Israel, even before Netanyahu saw the light of day. Now that we know, the house did not accept him and even crucified him, but not before God showed love to the non-Jews. The New Testament focuses mostly on this. In the same manner, the Antichrist will come, and it will be to the lost sheep of Israel. Since Jesus has come, the lost sheep of Israel in this case are those who still reject Jesus and do not accept him. They will naturally gravitate towards the Antichrist, since that is what the Bible promises will happen. Jesus himself narrates this in John chapter 5, verse 43. I have come in the name of my Father, and you do not receive me, but you receive him if he comes in his name. The rabbi is quoted as saying, the Antichrist is the Messiah, which the Jews are waiting for, in a July 25, 2020 story. Some of the traits of the Antichrist listed in the Bible were reiterated in the essay, including the fact that he would be a direct descendant of the house of King David of Judah, and that he would be the greatest political leader the world has ever known. He will lead the Third Temple's reconstruction, revive the Sanhedrin, and unite the people of Israel. The Antichrist must be a Jew and a Davidic ancestor, it emphasizes further. The same idea is expressed by the Apostle Paul about the Antichrist in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 4. The son of perdition, the Antichrist, will sit in the temple, claiming to be God, and he will use that to lead the people astray. This final viewpoint is held by Rabbi Mario Mourinho, the founder of the Messianic Jewish Shema Israel congregation. However, the Antichrist may not be any of these. He is capable of playing the role of the Mahdi of Islam, serving in politics, or engaging in other activities. The present trend in Israel seems to imply a low probability of any of them, yet he may even be an extraterrestrial from space who will rule the globe. It is quite difficult to dispute that the Antichrist would originate in this region of the world, given what we know about the Bible, particularly the fact that it speaks to Jews the most and the widespread quest for the Messiah among Israelites of all theological persuasions today. We shall provide support for the Messiahship of Jesus that we mention. Let's do it for a moment. He was said to have sprung from King David, and by virtue of his birth he was. He was born in Judea's Bethlehem. Significantly, God, in his kindness, revealed the future Messiah via several symbolic occurrences, but the Orthodox Jews of this time and those who followed him did not accept him as the promised Messiah. They were probably expecting him to be born a king or born in any place, not rural, and there was to be a sign on him that would proclaim his Messiahship outrightly. The second significant one is that he will construct a new temple, although it was right to presume that this referred to actual Jerusalem, as demonstrated by the Pharisees' argument. But this is not how God intended things to be done. It was only a representation of our bodies. This is confirmed by the Apostle Paul in 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 16. Your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit, and here we come to the Jewish people's most despicable one, a dying Messiah. According to legend, the Jews desired a Messiah who would lead them in global conquest. During this period, it was highly expected, especially when the Romans began to be brutal towards them under their iron rules, and they, having known freedom for so long, felt they should be freed. It was once impossible to imagine that a Messiah would not take care of that issue for them. Yet, as we already discussed, Jesus came to address spiritual issues more than physical ones. According to Hebrews, Jesus came to defeat the one who holds the power of death, and to defeat death for all of us, both of which he accomplished. These are unknown. Jesus is the last Messiah as a result. Although it is unclear if Netanyahu is the Antichrist, one thing is certain: there is a widespread longing in Israel for a Messiah who cannot be Jesus Christ. Now, this video has come to an end. We thank you for watching. Please like, comment, and share for more information from us.